Welcome to On Air with Kash. Our guest today grew up in LA, was raised in the industry, began making his own films at the age of 10. He can currently be seen in the feature films Max Reload and the Nether Blasters, D-Day, Battle of Omaha, and the Lifetime movie Christmas on the Menu, all streaming on Amazon. He appears in season 3 of the Netflix hit series Cobra Kai. Jesse Kove, pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Kash. So good to be here.
We just got to get right into it. This is what everyone's been talking about since it premiered on New Year's Day. Cobra Kai. This was no doubt the season of Sensei John Kreese. Jesse's father, the legendary Martin Kove, portrayed John Kreese in the original Karate Kid films and reprises his iconic role for the Netflix series Cobra Kai. Jesse, what was it like not only to jump into the Karate Kid universe, but you go face to face and have an on-screen confrontation with the younger version of your father, and you get to be a part of the season that really gives a human side to the character's backstory and legacy?
It was amazing. I mean, when they first had me audition for the role, I didn't really know exactly what it was for, but it was this bully character. Originally, I actually thought it was for young Kreese. And then they explained to me in the audition room what it was going to be. And I loved it. And then obviously when I got to set, they did a whole lot of extra stuff they threw in there. And it was just so fun, man. I mean, to be able to join the Cobra Kai Karate Kid universe in this specific way was incredible. It's kind of like this untouched territory. And I feel like it's kind of like, it's a very unique thing that like you can only see like in Back to the Future. And then like to have the actual son, me, who's then bullying my father, this character, and from the son in real life, it's crazy. And even that when we were filming on set, it was like everybody was so excited because they knew that his son was going to play this role. And then like I'm looking at this character, played by Barrett Carnahan, who's playing young version of my dad. And then my dad's actually watching, over in Video Village. It was this crazy day. It was just really unique, and I was so grateful as well, like just to be there. And I enjoyed it. I've grown up around Karate Kid stuff. I mean, I've seen that movie probably more than anybody. It was a beautiful moment, man. I really, really loved it. And we had a blast, man. We're just kicking ass all day. It was incredible.
When I saw that, I'm like, this is where it's going. And then you get out, you have your line, no mercy at the table. And then it totally turns and Barrett is revealed to be Kreese.
But that was one of the great things about it was they wanted everybody to think that I was young Kreese. Like they wanted that diversion. At the very beginning, when I come in, I'm actually embodying like my dad and like that character. Like I'm pretending basically to be him in those moments. And then I go into actually Varsity Captain David after, young Kreese actually comes in as the busboy. So, you see a little bit of that in there. And then you see, David, the character I was playing. And, it was just so fun to butt heads with this, young version of my dad.
I'll bet it was so surreal. And just like you even said, Back to the Future. I mean, that's what I love about the show. It's just, there's all these memories that we have. I mean, Karate Kid, Back to the Future. I think we're around the same age, grew up in LA. We both know those were movies that were just always, they were just always on. It was like the soundtrack of our childhood, basically.
And they always touch upon like the 80s nostalgia. And I think that's what people love so much is like, there's so many movies that were made in the 80s that are just such classics, and Cobra Kai touches upon that. And especially like with these flashback sequences, they go back even further. They went back into 1965 when we did that scene. So it was really amazing. And then also cool little Easter egg was when I was actually on set, I was driving the car that I pulled up in was actually the original car that Mr. Miyagi gave to Ralph Macchio in the original Karate Kid movie. So I drove that car, which they didn't tell me until the day of. And I was kind of like, so in this scene, I get to drive the original Miyagi Karate Kid Ford. Incredible. This is a trip. This is unbelievable. Like driving this classic car that actually Ralph owns in real life. That was given to him. It was just kind of again, the writers, John, Josh, and Hayden, they wanted to put these little fun Easter eggs in there. And, who knows, maybe I sold it to Miyagi later on or something, but it just kept piling on these great nostalgic moments.
That's amazing. And just people that I grew up with, I got so many texts, hey, are you watching Cobra Kai? And it was just, it's bringing back.
I love it.
Oh, definitely. I read that you had been making movies with your dad's camera since you were 10. It was actually a group of us who took karate together in the Valley. We trained at a Ball Ball studio that we were watching, Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee movies, and Karate Kid. And we did, of course, like Mortal Kombat was big back then. And so we had all these choreography scenes. And we did this one with Michael Schumann from Queens of the Stone Age. He was part of our crowd. Ashley Bell, she was part of our crowd. We did a Mortal Kombat movie where I was Kano and she was Sonya. And
Awesome.
then, and then actually Dylan Francis and I, we made this movie. It was like, we were gangsters and pimps, and his character was, we were like 13 years old with braces.
I love it. I love it.
And actually the cops actually showed up because they thought that we were the real deal.
Oh, wow.
And we talked our way out of it.
You're in character.
We
And
talked
you got your way out of it.
Oh gosh. Oh, I just said, look, we're student filmmakers. I live up the street. It was right here in Sherman Oaks where I grew up. But it's like those moments that I had, like making movies and then training at our dojo. Another thing that was brought to my attention, because prior to watching Cobra Kai, I went back and watched the original movies, which I hadn't seen in a bit. And the referee, Pat Johnson, he was very good friends with Bob Wall, who owned the studio. It was at his place, Wall Street in Tarzana. He had Sensei Pat Johnson come in, and he was the first sensei that we broke boards with.
Oh, how cool, man. That's so fun. And like, yeah, Pat Johnson, like people just love him. And, you know, there's so many people in the industry that just, you know, respected him, and he had, you know, friends everywhere. So it's fantastic, man.
Jesse, congratulations on Cobra Kai. We're all pumped. For years, I mean, Creese's character was just so hard ass, and you always thought he was that way. So when you came out as a bully, I think that's why people thought, oh, it's going to be him. But then this backstory just really shows a real human, like he was taking care of his mother. He went to Vietnam. And then when you see what he went through in Vietnam with his captain, and that final showdown that just made him the character that we all know.
Incredible.
And we know why Terry Silver is indebted to him.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the best things that they did, you know, during season 3 was going back into those flashback sequences and kind of getting this history of these characters, because people had all these questions about like where they come from, how'd they get this way. And so, you know, to go back as far as they did to, like, you know, young adults and to see that his character was actually bullied by someone, I just think it, you know, brings it full circle in a really beautiful way. And, you know, it just goes to show you, like, they humanized him. Like, everybody has a journey and everybody starts out somewhere. And this was Creese's story. And it was incredible, you know, just to be able to see that. And you have a little bit more sympathy for Creese, especially like in episode 10, you see all this stuff happening and the amalgamation of everything. And you're kind of like, oh, that's why he's doing this. So maybe he's fighting for the right reasons.
In that part with the pit and everything, you're like, all right, this is where the name came from. And it was in the build up to it. Because right when they say it's deep enough, but that's not the worst part, I was like, that's the name origin right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, and we were actually, my good friend Jackie Moore, we had on the show recently, and we both were talking about playing villains and how just really we love these backstories. And it really started with like the Star Wars.
They literally incorporated that in, like, at the end of the show. It was literally like, it was, you know, like Star Wars. It was my dad and Johnny, and then Johnny's son. And like, you know, it was like, you know, my dad says 3 generations of Cobra Kai, and like, they're all wearing black except Robbie, who's in white, who's kind of like the innocent one. I mean, it was just, they thought about all these things.
That was the best way to kickstart the new year. And I'll bet for you as well.
Oh, incredibly so. I mean, you know, people were stuck at home and they're able to finally they watched season 1 and 2 that was on Netflix release. And then 6 months later, they released season 3. So it was like Cobra Kai Nation, man.
The series in general, and like you said, it really there's these human elements. And I was once listening to an interview with Dolph Lundgren when Creed 2 came out, and for so long everyone associated him as Ivan Drago. He was just this ruthless machine. Creed 2 really showed layers to his character. He wasn't robotic. You see what happened to him after he lost and how he was raising his son.
And I think that's what's so interesting, to be able to do that with television now and more movies and sequels, is you can expand upon these characters and really get an understanding of them and see different sides of them that you wouldn't get to see sometimes that they do in the original movie. So I think it's amazing that they're doing that. And I think there are other shows that are going to try and copy the same, you know, recipe as like Cobra Kai, which, you know, clearly it works, taking these characters from 35 years ago, bringing them back now and showing their story, and still works, and people still are interested and love it. And the one thing that I always say, which is so amazing about Cobra Kai, is there's no explosions. There's no high-end CGI. It's just literally, you know, the kids, the story, and karate.
Absolutely. I'm pumped for the next season. Everyone tune in, Netflix, Cobra Kai, stream it. I can't wait to see where these characters go. Jesse actually filmed Christmas on the Menu this previous summer during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jesse, what was it like being on set?
It was wild, man. We were one of 3 productions in California that were going at the time, only 3. And, you know, we were really lucky that they were able to get that greenlit. And, you know, it was like the first time anybody had really worked during the, you know, COVID pandemic. And so, you know, it was a lot of balance, getting used to, like, you know, wearing the masks on set when you're supposed to be kind of like, you are very social, talking to people and communicating with them and running lines. You know, you're doing the scenes, rehearsal with the masks on and the face shields, and then, you know, you take them all off, and then you shoot the scene, you put it all back on again, and you're also doing social distancing. You know, so again, it's just like it just goes to show you that, like, you know, the film industry, the artists that are involved in it can just persevere through anything, because they were still able to make this happen even during the pandemic, which was really tough on people. But the biggest thing that I took away from that was how grateful people were to work, and how grateful they were to just be, you know, doing what they love, which is, you know, making movies and telling stories.
Jesse can be seen in Max Reload and the Nether Blasters, just released on Amazon. Jesse, I watched it last night. You play Steve, the UPS guy. What was it like working with Kevin Smith and Greg Grunberg?
These guys were so much fun to work with. I couldn't stop laughing. I mean, when you watch me in those scenes, you're literally watching me, they cut just before I'm laughing at the end of every scene. I mean, Kevin was so funny and such a joy to work with, and such a creative. And, you know, the movie's really for everyone. It's hilarious. You know, I get to play this. I love doing comedy. So it was fun for me to play this, like, really energetic guy. And it was just, you know, we had a blast making that. Scott Condon, Jeremy Tremp, who directed that, great guys. I have another project with them I'm working on now. And we just had a blast making that. It was literally like a dream project for them. So I'm so happy to be a part of that.
Dude, and you were hilarious too. I mean, I'm so used to seeing you as like the tough guy and just doing these action roles. And you're funny, dude. You're hilarious.
I really enjoy making people laugh and being silly and crazy. Like, you know, yeah, I do all that fun action stuff, but like I really enjoy being, you know, doing improv and again, making people laugh and just, you know, having a good time that way.
Well, dude, you pull it off well. And speaking of dramatic, I just watched you in D-Day, which was based off of a true story. You gave such a intense performance, and you actually, I don't know if you realize this, but you actually quoted both of my grandfathers who were World War II veterans at different points in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, your very first line.
You give him hell.
It was my mom's father, Colonel Joseph Paul Beaulieu. Great man. He taught me construction. I spent so much time with him as a kid. He would always say, Kash, give him hell.
Oh my God, I love that. Well, thank you. You know, thank them for their service. That movie was really special to me because I really wanted to, you know, I was portraying a real life character for Sergeant Lamel. And, you know, I really took it to heart because, you know, you're telling stories of these guys that were fighting for, you know, basically freedom. And, you know, no matter what was going on set, I was always, you know, telling my buddy, who's one of the leads as well, Weston Cage Coppola, you know, we were like, well, these guys could go through it. We got to be able to go through this, you know, because it was a tough shoot. It was probably the most physically and emotionally draining movie I've ever done because, you know, we were running on the beach. We were, you know, shooting at these Nazis and, you know, we were exhausted and we were dirty and tired but we had to keep going and deliver these lines and get them out. And also, you know, how all the emotions that come with that. And again, it was like, what was getting me through that was realizing and knowing that these guys really had to go through this. So I couldn't complain.
And you had it down too. I mean, the way that you were holding your gun and just the signs.
Thanks, man. One of the funny things I did to prep for that role was because I had to do a lot of shouting, and I've told the story before, but it's really fun. Like I was literally driving down the 405 freeway and I looked up sounds of war on YouTube, like gunshots, explosions, and I cranked it up all the way, super loud, had the windows down. And so I had this crazy battle sounds going on in the car while I was practicing shouting my lines so I could kind of get an idea of what that craziness would have been like. And then I took that and brought it into the movie. So it was kind of interesting, some of the things I did to prep for that.
That's amazing. And then the other line, it comes in later. The other soldier says it to you. Your fathers both had the same philosophy. You don't go to sleep angry, and you tell people what you mean to tell them because you might not get a chance to.
Might never see them again. Yeah. That we had a great time shooting that scene. That was really a lot of fun. That was really great.
That's what I mean, and it connects. And I think in our case, our grandfathers probably said that to people. I mean, my grandfather really took it to heart. He didn't even say goodbye to me. When I'd be on the phone with him, he would just hang up. And after I'd say, he never wanted bye to be the last thing he heard or the last thing he said.
Oh, wow. I get it, man. You know, everybody's got their own routines of that stuff. And so, I mean, it was really, yeah, it's pretty incredible what some people do.
Obviously, you know, you grew up, you were studying martial arts, you study weapons with a Terran Tactical. I've seen you on the range.
Yeah.
And you perform a lot of your own stunts.
I've taken, you know, so much from different projects, and I did karate when I was younger, and I also did some, you know, mixed martial arts. You know, I wouldn't say I'm a master or anything like that. But, you know, I'm a very athletic person. I love working out, and I've been an athlete my whole life. So, you know, when I'm doing these physically challenging roles, I really, you know, I really want to put myself in those moments and try to keep it as real as possible. So, you know, if I got to jump down and land on the ground or on my shoulders or back, whatever, like I really want to do it. You know, like on D-Day, I'd come home every night with cuts and scrapes, and like I really like to portray that stuff as real as possible. Obviously, I do weapons training as well, and which, you know, I've been shooting BB guns and stuff since I was a kid, and you know, there's an art form to that. You know, you do it safely and you practice it. Again, I've just taken so many different things from so many different projects, and you know, I wouldn't say I have a style, but it's just my own way that I like to to portray something. And if I can keep it as close to the character as I can, then I know I've done my job.
No, and it's definitely shown in your work. I was really on a kick at the beginning of last year. I'd never done stand-up before. I took a stand-up class. I signed up for
I think that is the hardest thing that anybody can do, is doing stand-up. I'm scared shitless if I were to ever do stand-up. I may give it a try, but anybody who does stand-up, they have like the heart of a lion and the skin of a rhino. It's
unfortunate that the pandemic happened. We started doing it virtually, and then my first show was virtual, but it was just, I was self-conscious about what I was going to talk about. At the beginning of this year, did you think that by the time summer rolled around, wearing a mask to the beach is going to be the new normal? The other day, I'm talking to a friend of mine. She's an optometrist. She said occasionally she'll be with a client and their mask will slip, revealing their nose, and she feels like she just got flashed. Is that really the kind of world you want to live in? I also did Wirefighters around the same time, and that was actually less terrifying. I mean, you know, flying around and jumping and flips.
Sure. And I would think doing stand-up is much, much scarier.
Oh, I was taking jujitsu and hot yoga, and then a lot of people that I was working with were doing Wirefighters, and I was actually lucky. It was a month before they closed everything down. I got to do one of the last classes they offered. I was doing these front flips. I was getting caught and tangled, and they said, "Kash, do a backflip," and I'm like, "You're crazy."
Wow.
And so I just did the backflip. I went, and then finally I got the rhythm down. But even just some of there's a lot of footage of what it took for me to work up and get that, getting my leg caught, and then finally I went. So, dude, when we reopen again, we need to go to Wirefighters.
Dude, that's a lot of bravery and talent, man. You got me. I definitely love to give it a try.
You got it, brother. Jesse, you have been on a roll this year. Cobra Kai, you continue to surprise me with your comedic roles, your action films. Now you're going to do a musical. Everyone follow Jesse Kove on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Jesse, it's been a pleasure having you on today. Please join us again soon. Keep rolling.
Kash, thank you so much. And just remember, no mercy.
No mercy. Thanks for tuning in with me and Jesse Kove. You are on air with Kash. And remember,
no mercy.
Jesse Kove and I just had a conversation about studying martial arts at an early age. The first time I broke a board was at the dojo I studied at, which was owned by Bob Wall. Sensei Pat Johnson, who played the referee in the original Karate Kid movies, was present and taught us how to break boards. I present to you the first board I ever broke, signed by Bob Wall and Pat Johnson.